When I opened the door to my penthouse that Sunday morning, Jessica was standing there with a smile that made my blood run cold. Behind her, Michael held 2 enormous suitcases. "Mom," she said with that sweet voice I knew all too well, "we're moving in. Since you have so much space and we're going through a tough time, it's only fair, don't you think? After all, we're family." I looked at the boxes stacked in the hallway of the building. I counted 6 bundles, 3 more suitcases, and grocery bags stuffed with clothes. They had come prepared. They had assumed I would say yes. 12 years. 12 years without a single phone call. 12 years in which they erased me from their lives as if I had never existed. 12 years in which they didn't let me see my granddaughter, Sophia. In which they banned me from attending birthdays, graduations, and Christmases. 12 years in which Jessica convinced the entire family that I was a toxic, manipulative, dangerous woman. And now they were there, standing in front of my door, demanding entry into my life as if they had a right to it. As if the last 12 years hadn't happened. Michael finally looked me in the eyes, and I saw something that broke my soul. He expected me to say yes. After everything they did to me, after how they destroyed me, he truly believed I would welcome them with open arms. Because that was what I had always done. Right? Forgive, yield, disappear when it was convenient for them. But the woman they knew didn't exist anymore. That woman died 12 years ago, the day they kicked me out of their lives. The woman standing in front of them now was someone completely different. To understand how we got to this moment, I need to go back to the beginning. I need to tell you how I lost my family and how, without knowing it, that loss ended up saving my life. It all started 15 years ago, when my husband, Robert, died. We had been married for 40 years. 40 years of shared routines, laughter in the kitchen, hands clasped in front of the television. One March morning, he left the house to go to work. He kissed me on the forehead like always. "I'll be back at 6, he told me. He never came back. A massive heart attack at the train station. The paramedics said he didn't suffer, that it was instant. But I suffered. I suffered every second of every day for months. The house became a silent mausoleum. I cooked for 2 and ended up throwing away half the food. I set the table with 2 plates out of habit. I still kept his coffee mug in the same spot. Michael was my salvation in those dark months. My son, my only son, became my anchor. He was 25 years old then. He worked at a tech company. He lived alone in a small apartment near downtown. But after Robert died, Michael started visiting me 3 times a week. We had dinner together. He helped me with the insurance paperwork, with the bills, with all those things Robert had always handled. I cooked his favorite meals. He hugged me when I cried in front of his father's photo. I thought nothing could separate us. I thought we were an unbreakable team. Then he met Jessica. It was a Saturday in October when Michael called me, excited in a way I hadn't heard in months. "Mom, I met someone special. I want you to meet her. I'd like to bring her to dinner next Friday." My heart filled with joy. My son was smiling again. That was all I wanted. I spent the whole week preparing for that dinner. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. I bought fresh flowers for the centerpiece. I brought out the special china, the one Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary, that we only used for important occasions. I cooked for hours. I prepared that pot roast with herbs that Michael loved, a fresh salad, scalloped potatoes, and a homemade chocolate cake for dessert. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted this woman who had managed to make my son smile to know she was welcome in our family. When they rang the doorbell that night, I made sure my cream-colored dress was well ironed, that my hair was in place, that my smile was warm and genuine. I opened the door, and there she was. Jessica was beautiful. She had long, dark hair, perfect skin, a slender figure wrapped in a champagne-colored dress that fit her as if it were custom-made. She smiled with perfectly white teeth. "You must be Eleanor," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard so much about you." Her handshake was firm, her voice melodious. But there was something in her eyes, something that didn't match the smile. They were eyes that measured, that calculated, that evaluated every detail of the house, my clothes, my face. I felt it in that instant, even though I couldn't name it. It was like when the air changes before a storm, a wordless certainty. The dinner went perfectly on the surface. Jessica praised the food, the house, the decor. "What beautiful china," she said, touching the plate delicately. It must have a lot of sentimental value. She seemed fascinated by the photos of Michael as a child. "Oh, how cute," she would say, in front of each one. Michael couldn't stop looking at her. He was completely in love. I wanted to be happy for him. I really tried. But every time Jessica looked at me, I felt like I was being catalogued, filed, classified into some mental category she managed. After dinner, while I was preparing coffee in the kitchen, I heard them talking in the living room. Jessica's voice was barely a whisper, but the walls of that old house carried sound. "Your mom is very intense, isn't she? So much attention drains me a little." Michael's nervous laugh. "She's just excited. She's always been expressive like that." And then Jessica's voice, even softer. Sure. It's just that. Well, I hope she understands that you have your own life now." I returned to the living room with the coffee and a frozen smile on my face. That was the first seed. So small, it was almost invisible. But it was already planted. Over the next few months, Jessica became a constant presence in our lives. She came to visit every 2 weeks, always with some small gift. Flowers from the grocery store, a magazine she thought I'd like, cookies bought from that expensive bakery downtown. She called me Mom with apparent affection. She asked how I was, how I had slept, if I needed help with anything. On the surface, she seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law, but every visit brought a comment with it. Small, wrapped in concern, impossible to confront without seeming paranoid. "Eleanor, do you still cook with so much butter? I'm teaching Michael to eat healthier. The doctor says high cholesterol is hereditary." Or when she looked at the photos in the living room. "How lovely this house was when it was more updated. Have you thought about remodeling? These pieces of furniture are so antique." Every phrase was a tiny pinprick. Just one didn't hurt. But she never threw just one. And I, like a fool, started changing myself to please her. I stopped using butter. I bought new throw pillows for the sofa. I questioned every word before saying it in front of her. Michael started canceling our dinners. There was always a reason. An urgent project at work, a dinner with Jessica's friends, extreme exhaustion. And when he did come, he wasn't my Michael anymore. He looked at me differently, as if I were a problem that needed to be handled with care, as if everything I said had a hidden meaning he had to decipher. One day I asked him if everything was okay between us. "Of course, Mom," he said without looking me in the eye. "It's just that I've been very busy. Jessica says I need to learn to set healthy boundaries." Boundaries. That word became the mantra of our relationship. Healthy boundaries, personal space, emotional independence. All phrases I was sure came from Jessica's mouth, but that Michael repeated as if they were newly discovered universal truths. 6 months after meeting her, Michael announced the engagement. "We're getting married in the spring," he said with a huge smile. "Jessica wants an intimate but elegant wedding. I hope you can help us with some things." My heart filled with hope. Maybe this was what we needed. Maybe once married, Jessica would relax. Maybe I would find my place in this new family configuration. I offered to help with everything. Jessica accepted effusively, but every suggestion of mine was discarded with a smile. The flowers I proposed were too common. The venue I recommended was too old-fashioned. The menu idea was too heavy for a spring wedding. I ended up being a spectator of my own participation. I paid $3,000 for Jessica's wedding dress because she sighed in front of Michael, saying her parents couldn't help her financially. I paid another $2,000 for the floral arrangements. Every time I handed over a check, Jessica hugged me and said, "You are so generous, Mom. I don't know what we would do without you." But she never asked my opinion on anything important. The day of the wedding, I bought a lavender dress especially for the occasion. I spent $400 on that dress. I wanted to look good. I wanted Michael to feel proud of his mother. When I arrived at the venue, Jessica saw me and her smile froze for a second. "Oh, Eleanor, that color ages you terribly. You should use brighter tones at your age." She said it in front of 4 of her friends who were waiting at the entrance. They all laughed discreetly, covering their mouths with their hands. I apologized. I don't know why I apologized, but I did. And I spent the rest of the wedding feeling invisible. In the family photos, Jessica always found a way to position herself between Michael and me. During the toasts, She thanked her parents for their unconditional love, her grandparents for their wisdom, her friends for their support. When she mentioned Michael's family, she only said, "And thanks to the Millers for opening the doors of their family to me." She didn't even say my name. Robert had been dead for 5 years by then. I was the only Miller present. And she didn't even mention my name. That night I cried in my empty house, looking at the wedding photos on my phone, searching for one where I appeared genuinely smiling. I didn't find any. After the wedding, Michael and Jessica moved to a condo on the other side of the city. The visits became sporadic. Once a month, if I was lucky. When I called Michael's phone, Jessica answered, "Hi, Mom. Michael is in the shower. He'll call you back." He never called. "Oh, Michael is working on an important project. I don't want to interrupt him. Can I help you with something?" As if I needed an intermediary to talk to my own son. I started to feel like I was chasing someone who didn't want to be caught, until one day I decided to surprise them. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had cooked that beef stew Michael had loved since he was a boy. The same one Robert asked for every birthday. I put it in a thermal container, took the bus for 40 minutes, and rang the doorbell of their apartment. I rang 3 times. I heard movement inside, footsteps, whispers. Finally, Jessica opened the door. She wasn't smiling. "Eleanor, you didn't say you were coming," she said without moving from the doorframe. "Michael is resting. He's had a very heavy week, and I don't want him disturbed." I stood there, holding that container still warm, feeling like a door-to-door salesman. "I just wanted to bring you something to eat," I said. "I thought you might like it." Jessica extended her hands and took the container without inviting me in. "How thoughtful," she said with a flat voice. "But you know Michael is watching his diet. These heavy meals aren't good for him. The doctor recommended reducing red meat and sauces. I'll give it to him, but it will probably end up in the freezer for some special occasion." And she closed the door. I stood in that hallway for almost 2 full minutes, staring at the closed door, listening to the muffled sounds from inside. At some point, I heard Michael's laugh. He was in there, awake, and hadn't come out to say hello. I went back home on the bus with empty hands and a crushed heart. That night I cried until I fell asleep on the sofa. But I still didn't know that this was barely the beginning. The worst was still brewing in silence. 3 months later, Jessica announced she was pregnant. Michael called me personally to give me the news. "You're going to be a grandma, Mom," he said with an emotion I hadn't heard in years. "We are very happy." I was happy too. Sincerely happy. A baby, a new chance. Maybe this baby would give me back my son. Maybe Jessica would soften with motherhood. Maybe everything would get better. I offered to help with whatever they needed. I wanted to buy baby clothes, furniture, diapers. I wanted to be present. Jessica accepted some things, but always with conditions. She let me buy only what she approved beforehand, only the brands she researched, only the colors that matched the nursery decor she had planned. I obeyed every instruction like an employee following orders. When Sophia was born, they didn't let me into the delivery room. "I understand," I said. "It's an intimate moment." I waited 8 hours in the hospital waiting room. Jessica's parents arrived and went in immediately. I kept waiting. Finally, 5 hours after my granddaughter was born, Michael came out and told me I could go in. "5 minutes, Mom. Jessica is very tired." I walked into that room and saw my granddaughter for the first time. She was perfect, tiny, wrinkled, beautiful. I wanted to hold her, but Jessica said the pediatrician had recommended limiting contact for the first few hours. I only observed from a distance. 5 minutes later, a nurse asked me to leave. As I walked down the hospital hallway, I heard the laughter of Jessica's parents inside the room. They could stay. That was when I knew, with absolute clarity, that I wasn't part of this family. I was just a tolerated guest. The first months after Sophia's birth were silent torture. I would call to ask how the baby was, and Jessica always had an excuse. "She's sleeping, and we don't want to wake her. She has colic and is very irritable." The pediatrician recommended limiting visitors to avoid germs. Every reason sounded medical, reasonable, impossible to argue with, without seeming selfish. But Jessica's parents visited 3 times a week. I knew because Jessica posted photos on social media, Grandma Karen holding Sophia, Grandpa Richard giving her a bottle, everyone smiling, everyone welcome. I didn't appear in any photo. When they finally allowed me to visit, the rules were strict. I had to wash my hands for 30 seconds before touching the baby. I couldn't wear perfume because Jessica said the chemicals were harmful. I couldn't hold her for more than 5 minutes because it disrupted her sleep routine. I couldn't bring her clothes because Jessica only used specific organic brands. I couldn't give an opinion on anything related to her upbringing because modern methods were different from my generation's. Basically, I could observe, nothing else. One day I dared to tell Michael that I would like to spend more time with Sophia. "Mom, you have to understand that Jessica is very stressed," he told me. "She's a first-time mother and needs space to find her rhythm. We can't have constant visitors." I reminded him that I had only visited 4 times in 2 months. He sighed as if I were a burden. "Exactly. That's quite often. We need family intimacy." Family intimacy. As if I weren't family. As if being a grandmother were a privilege I had to earn instead of a natural right. I stopped insisting. I stopped calling so much. I waited for them to contact me. Sometimes 3 weeks went by without news. Meanwhile, Jessica's social media was full of photos of Sophia with her parents, with her siblings, with her nephews. Everyone enjoying my granddaughter. Everyone except me. When Sophia turned 1, they invited me to the birthday party. I arrived 30 minutes early to help set up. Jessica looked at me with surprise. "Oh, I thought we agreed on 3 o'clock. Everything is already ready." I stood there at the entrance with a large gift wrapped in pink paper and a cake I had baked that morning. A vanilla bean cake decorated with fresh strawberries. Michael's favorite when he was a boy. Jessica looked at the cake and frowned. "Eleanor, I told you I had already ordered the cake. It's from a bakery that specializes in desserts without refined sugar. I can't have 2 cakes. It would confuse the guests. But you can leave it in the kitchen just in case." I left it in the kitchen. Nobody tasted it. At the end of the party, I found it exactly where I had left it, untouched. The cake from the expensive bakery was completely devoured. During the party, I tried to hold Sophia. Jessica appeared immediately. "Careful, Eleanor. You're going to overstimulate her. She's had a lot of interaction today. Better let her be calm." She took the baby from my arms with a smile and handed her to her mother, Karen, who held her for the rest of the afternoon without anyone saying anything about overstimulation. In the group photos, when I got close, Jessica would say, "Wait, Eleanor, better you take the photo so we all fit." I ended up being the official photographer of a party where I was supposed to be the grandmother. I drove back home with that intact cake in the passenger seat. I threw it in the trash that night. I couldn't even look at it without feeling a tightness in my chest. But I told myself I had to be patient, that things would improve, that eventually Jessica would trust me. How naive I was. Things didn't improve. They worsened systematically. Jessica started inventing things. Small things at first. She told Michael that I had criticized the way she dressed the baby. I never did. She told him I had suggested that breastfeeding was unnecessary and she should use formula. I never said that. She told him I had arrived without calling twice when they weren't there, and that the neighbors saw me trying to enter the apartment. Absolute lies. Every accusation was vague enough not to be completely refutable, but specific enough to make Michael look at me with suspicion. I started defending myself constantly. "I never said that, Michael. You have to believe me." He would whisper, "Mom, Jessica has no reason to lie. Maybe you said something and didn't realize how it sounded. Oh, sometimes we remember things differently. It's nobody's fault." But he always believed her. Never me. The extended family started distancing themselves too. Cousins who used to call me often stopped answering my messages. At family gatherings, people treated me with cold cordiality, until one day my cousin Susan took me aside and said, "Eleanor, I know you're going through something difficult, but you shouldn't pressure Michael and Jessica so much. They need their space." Jessica told me you've been very demanding. Demanding. Me, who barely saw them once a month. Me, who walked on eggshells every time I interacted with them. Me, who had given up having opinions, expressing needs, existing fully. I was the demanding one. I asked Susan what specifically Jessica had said. She got uncomfortable. "Well, things about how you call a lot, that you show up without warning, that you make passive-aggressive comments about how they raise Sophia. None of that was true. but Jessica had woven such a perfect web that even my own family believed her instead of me. The breaking point came on Sophia's second birthday. This time I made sure to ask exactly what I could bring. Jessica told me not to bring anything, that they already had everything organized. But I insisted, please, let me contribute something. Finally, she accepted that I bring drinks. I bought organic juices, sparkling water, sodas. I spent almost $100 on quality beverages. I arrived at the party at the exact time indicated. This time the celebration was at a children's party venue. There were at least 40 people. Whole families I didn't know. Jessica's parents were there with her siblings and nephews. Everyone laughing, everyone comfortable. I felt like a stranger at my own granddaughter's birthday. I left the drinks on the designated table. Jessica didn't even look at them. Thanks, she said without turning around. I looked for Michael. He was busy organizing games with the other children. I tried to approach Sophia, who was playing with blocks in a corner. I knelt beside her. Hi, precious. Do you remember your grandma Eleanor? Sophia looked at me with huge, curious eyes. She said nothing. She probably didn't remember me. She only saw me every 2 months, and always for short periods. I extended my hands to hold her. Immediately, Jessica appeared out of nowhere. Sophia, come with Mommy. We have to cut the cake. She took the girl and walked away. I remained kneeling on the floor, with my arms extended toward emptiness. Several people looked at me with pity. That was worse than indifference. During the cake ceremony, we all sang Happy Birthday. Sophia was sitting in a high chair decorated with peach-colored balloons. Jessica and Michael were on each side, Jessica's parents right behind. When they took the photo, I was so far back that you can't even see me completely in the image. Only part of my shoulder appears. After cutting the cake, I served myself a piece and sat at an empty table. I ate alone, watching everyone else mingle, laugh, enjoy. Michael passed by my table 3 times and didn't stop once. He was too busy being the perfect host. When it came time to open gifts, Sophia opened at least 15 boxes. Expensive toys, designer clothes, illustrated books. I had brought a gift too. A set of handmade wooden blocks I had found at a craft fair. They were beautiful, educational, safe. But when Sophia reached for my gift, Jessica quickly pushed it aside. Oh, we'll open that one later, sweetie. Let's go with this other one. It's more exciting. My gift remained at the end, unopened, as everyone began to leave. I decided to leave before the party ended. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked for Michael to say goodbye. He was at the entrance talking to Jessica's brother. I approached and touched his arm. I'm leaving now, son. Thanks for inviting me. He nodded distractedly. Sure, Mom. Thanks for coming. And he went back to his conversation. Not a hug, not a thank you for the drinks, not a see you later. I walked toward the exit with my eyes burning from held-back tears. In the parking lot, I finally let them out. I cried leaning against my old car for 10 minutes. When I looked up, I saw through the venue window how everyone kept laughing, celebrating, enjoying, without me. Perfectly fine without me. I drove home knowing that something inside me had broken definitively. But I still didn't know the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks after that birthday, I received a call from Michael. It was Tuesday afternoon. I was preparing dinner when I saw his name on the phone screen. My heart skipped a beat. He hadn't called me on his own initiative in weeks. Hello, son, I answered, trying to sound casual. We need to talk, he said with a serious voice. Jessica and I have been discussing some things, and we think it would be better to have a conversation with you. Can we come to your house tomorrow? I accepted immediately. I spent that entire night and the next morning cleaning the house, brewing coffee, baking cookies. I thought maybe they wanted to ask me to babysit Sophia. Maybe they had reflected and wanted to bring me closer to the family. What a fool I was. They arrived at 3 in the afternoon. Jessica carried a folder under her arm. Michael barely looked me in the eye when they entered. They sat on the sofa, the two of them very close, forming a united front. I sat opposite them in the armchair that had been Robert's. Eleanor, Jessica began with a soft but firm voice. We have noticed a pattern in your behavior that worries us a lot. A pattern of invasive and controlling behavior that is affecting our family. I lost my breath. What are you talking about? Michael cleared his throat. Mom, you've been pressuring us a lot. You show up without warning, you make inappropriate comments about how we raised Sophia, and Jessica feels constantly judged by you. None of those things were true. I tried to defend myself, but Jessica opened her folder. I have specific examples, she said. On March 20th, you arrived without warning when we weren't there. The neighbor saw you. I had just stopped by to drop off a gift for Sophia. I left the package at the door and left. On April 5th, you made a comment that Sophia was very thin and that we should feed her better. I never said that. I said she looked beautiful. On May 15th, you criticized the outfit we had put on her, saying the green color didn't suit her. Lie. I said she looked precious in any color. But Jessica had a complete list. Date after date. Accusation after accusation. All distortions of real conversations or complete fabrications. And Michael was sitting there, nodding at every word that came out of his wife's mouth. I tried to reason with him. Michael, you know me. You know I would never do the things she is saying. I am your mother. I raised you. You know me better than anyone. He lowered his gaze. Exactly why it's difficult, Mom. I know you're not a bad person, but sometimes mothers have trouble letting go of their sons. Jessica has helped me understand that many of the dynamics of our relationship are not healthy. Dynamics. Letting go. Healthy. All words I knew Jessica had put in his mouth. Jessica leaned forward. Eleanor, we appreciate you. Really. But we need you to respect our boundaries as a nuclear family. We have decided that for a while we need space. No more visits without coordinating at least a week in advance. No more unsolicited gifts. No more opinions on how we raise Sophia. And especially, no more attempts to emotionally manipulate Michael into feeling guilty for prioritizing us. The word manipulate hit me like a physical slap. I don't manipulate anyone, I said with a trembling voice. I just want to be part of my granddaughter's life. Be part of my son's life. Jessica sighed as if she were dealing with a difficult child. See, this is exactly the problem. You make everything about you, about your needs, about what you want. You never consider what we need. Michael nodded. She's right, Mom. It's always about you. I stood up. I couldn't stay seated. I felt the walls closing in on me. I have done everything you have asked. I have followed every rule. I have respected every boundary. What more do you want from me? We want you to understand that our lives do not revolve around you, Jessica said, standing up too. That Sophia is not your second chance to be a mother. That Michael is an adult man who doesn't need his mom to take care of him. I looked at my son. Michael, please, tell me this isn't what you really want. He finally looked me in the eyes. And what I saw there destroyed me. There was no doubt, no conflict. He was completely convinced that I was the problem. We need this space. Mom, please, respect it. They left 10 minutes later. I watched them from the window get into their car. Jessica was driving. Michael was in the passenger seat, looking at his phone. Neither turned to look at the house. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, replaying every moment of the conversation, every accusation, every look of disappointment from Michael, every word carefully chosen by Jessica to make me look like a villain. The next morning I called my cousin Susan. I needed to talk to someone. I told her everything that had happened. There was a long silence on the other end. Eleanor, listen, she finally said. Maybe you should consider that they have a point. Sometimes, parents don't realize how much pressure we apply. My own daughter told me something similar last year, and when I took a step back, our relationship improved. I hung up feeling lonelier than ever. Even my family was telling me I was the problem. 3 weeks went by. I didn't call. I didn't visit. I waited for them to make the first move. Nothing. A month passed. Total silence. 2 months. Not a word. In the 3rd month, I tried calling Michael. The phone rang until voicemail picked up. I sent him a text message. No answer. I sent him an email asking how Sophia was. Nothing. It was as if I had ceased to exist. I fell into a deep depression. I stopped leaving the house except for essentials. I stopped cooking elaborate meals. I lived on instant soups and toast. The house I used to keep spotless filled with dust. I had no energy for anything. One afternoon, 6 months after that terrible conversation, I was lying on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, when the doorbell rang. My heart jumped. Maybe it was Michael. Maybe he had come to his senses. I ran to open the door. It was Susan. She wore a worried expression. "Eleanor, I need to talk to you." I let her in. She sat on the edge of the sofa, as if fearing she would catch my misery. "I just spoke with Karen, Jessica's mom," she began. "She told me something I need to know. Apparently, you have been harassing Jessica, calling her at all hours, sending her threatening messages, showing up at her work. Eleanor, that is very serious." My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. "I haven't spoken to Jessica in 6 months. I don't have her work number. I don't even know where she works." Susan looked at me with pity. "Look, I know you're going through something difficult, but you need professional help. This level of denial isn't healthy." She didn't believe me. Nobody would believe me. Jessica had built a narrative so solid that anything I said sounded like excuses from a desperate woman. I asked Susan to leave. She left, but before going, she left the name of a therapist. "In case you decide to seek help," she said. That night I sat at the dining room table with a notebook. I wrote everything down, every interaction with Jessica, every lie she had told, every time they had kept me away from Sophia, every humiliation. I filled 12 pages with tight handwriting, and at the end, I realized something. It didn't matter what I wrote. It didn't matter how much evidence I had. Jessica had won. She had taken my son. She had taken my granddaughter. She had taken my extended family. And she had left me completely alone. The next day, I received a certified letter. It was from a lawyer. Michael and Jessica were formally requesting that I cease all contact. The letter used words like harassment, erratic behavior, and the welfare of the minor. They threatened me with a restraining order if I tried to approach them or Sophia. I read that letter 5 times. Each time the words hurt more. My own son was threatening me legally. I signed the receipt with trembling hands, and something inside me died that day. The mother I had been, the grandmother I dreamed of being, the woman who still had hope, all died. What was left was an empty shell sitting in a silent house, finally understanding that I had lost everything. The following 6 months were the darkest of my life, darker even than when Robert died. Because when I was widowed, I had Michael's support. I had a purpose, to keep going for my son. Now I had nothing. I woke up every morning with no reason to get up. The house was in permanent silence. The phone never rang. The doorbell never chimed. It was like living in a tomb. I stopped eating properly. I lost almost 40 pounds in those months. My clothes hung off me. I had deep circles under my eyes. My hair fell out in clumps. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. It was a ghost inhabiting a body. I thought of dark things during that time. Very dark. There were nights I sat in the kitchen with a bottle of sleeping pills in front of me, wondering if anyone would notice my absence. Probably not. Maybe weeks would pass before anyone realized. But something in me, something small and stubborn, refused to give up completely. It was Robert's voice in my head. "Eleanor," he told me in my memories, "you are stronger than this. Don't let them destroy you." One October afternoon, 11 months after receiving the lawyer's letter, I was sitting on the sofa watching television without really seeing it. A cooking show came on. The chef was preparing elaborate cakes, decorated with sugar flowers and intricate details. And for the first time in months, I felt something, a small flicker of interest. I remembered how I liked to bake, how Robert always said my desserts were the best in the world, how Michael, as a child, would sit in the kitchen watching me work, stealing bits of dough when I wasn't looking. The kitchen had been my refuge, my way of expressing love, and I had abandoned it completely. The next day, I went to the grocery store. I bought flour, sugar, eggs, butter. I bought new pans and utensils that needed replacing. I spent almost $200. I arrived home and baked. A simple vanilla cake, nothing elaborate. But while I mixed the ingredients, while the aroma filled the kitchen, something inside me began to wake up. The cake turned out perfect, moist, fluffy, with the exact point of sweetness. I tasted it, and for the first time in almost a year, I smiled. I baked every day for the next 2 weeks. Cakes, cookies, pies, brownies. The kitchen became my therapy. I had no one to give everything I made to, so I gave it away. To the neighbors, to the mailman, to the lady at the corner store. People started asking me for specific things. "Eleanor, Could you make those chocolate chip cookies again? Eleanor, my daughter has a birthday. Would you make a cake? I'll pay you, obviously. I started charging. Small amounts at first. $20 for a cake, $30 for 2 dozen cookies. It wasn't about the money. It was because I needed to feel that what I did had value. That I had value, the demand grew. One customer recommended me to another. That 1 to 3 more. Suddenly I was baking 5 cakes a week. I bought more pans. I improved my recipes. I started experimenting with flavors. Lemon meringue cake, coffee walnut brownies, lavender butter cookies. Every creation was an act of reconstruction. Every satisfied customer was a small victory against the void. 6 months after starting, one of my customers, the owner of a small coffee shop, made me a proposal. Eleanor, your desserts are extraordinary. Would you consider supplying me regularly? I need 10 cakes a week. I'd pay you $500 a month. I accepted without thinking. $500 wasn't much, but it was a start. It was a purpose. It was a reason to get up every morning. I turned the dining room into a mini bakery. I bought a used industrial oven. I invested in better quality ingredients. I got up at 5 in the morning to bake. I worked until 9 at night perfecting recipes. I had no social life. I had no family. But I had this, and this was saving me. A year later, I had 3 coffee shops as clients, then 5, then 8. I was making $3,000 a month. It wasn't a fortune, but it was more than I had ever earned in my life. I moved to a small commercial space, a shared kitchen I rented by the hour. I hired my first assistant, a young girl named Amanda who was studying culinary arts. She taught me modern techniques. I taught her the secrets of traditional recipes. We created a perfect symbiosis. 2 years after hitting rock bottom, I had a clientele of 20 establishments, cafes, small restaurants, gourmet shops. My business had an official name, Eleanor's Kitchen. It had a logo, it had business cards, it had a separate bank account. It had employees. I had invoicing of $10,000 a month, and most importantly, I had dignity. I had stopped crying for Michael. I had stopped checking Jessica's social media obsessively. I had stopped waiting for the phone to ring. I hadn't forgotten. The pain was still there, stored in a corner of my chest. But it no longer controlled me. It no longer defined me. I was Eleanor, owner of a thriving business. Eleanor, employer. Eleanor, entrepreneur. Eleanor, independent woman. Not just Eleanor, the rejected mother, the forbidden grandmother, the discarded woman. I turned 63 alone in my commercial kitchen, surrounded by pans and bags of flour. But I didn't feel sad. I felt proud. I had survived. More than that, I had thrived. Then came the moment that changed everything. A renowned chef tasted one of my cakes at one of the coffee shops I supplied. He sought me out personally. "Miss Eleanor," he said when he appeared in my kitchen. "This is edible art. Have you considered expanding? I have contacts in the hotel industry. There is a huge market for high-quality artisanal pastry." 3 months later, I was supplying 2 luxury hotels. 6 months later, it was 5 hotels. A year later, I had contracts with 10 high-end establishments and a waiting list of potential clients. I had to rent a full industrial kitchen. I hired 8 employees. I bought professional equipment. I invested in elegant packaging. My monthly invoicing reached $40,000. $40,000 a month. Me, who had lived on Robert's pension for years. Me, who counted every penny. Me, who had normalized scarcity. Suddenly, I had more money than I knew what to do with. I didn't change my way of living drastically. I remained austere by nature, but I started allowing myself small luxuries. New clothes that fit well, haircuts at a decent salon, a gym membership to take care of my health, quality food, vitamin supplements. Little by little, the woman in the mirror started looking like someone alive again. I was 64 when my accountant told me, "Eleanor, with these numbers you could consider buying a property, an investment, something that gives you long-term stability." I started looking at properties, modest houses in quiet neighborhoods, practical condos, nothing flashy. Then my real estate agent showed me the penthouse. It was ridiculous. 2,000 square feet in a luxury building in downtown. Huge floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view. Designer kitchen with stainless steel appliances. 2 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms. Private terrace. Gym and pool in the building. The price was absurd. $900,000. I could never pay it. But when I walked into that penthouse and saw the city stretching out before me, something clicked. This place represented everything I had achieved, everything I had built from the ashes. I talked to the bank. With my verifiable income and a substantial down payment, they approved the loan. I signed the papers with trembling hands. I couldn't believe this was real. That I, Eleanor, the woman who had been discarded like trash by her own family, was now the owner of a luxury penthouse. I moved on a sunny spring Saturday. I didn't have many things. Most of the furniture from the old house I donated. I wanted to start completely new. I bought modern and comfortable furniture. I decorated with plants and local art. I turned the 2nd bedroom into an office to manage my business. The first night in the penthouse, I sat on the terrace with a glass of wine. I looked at the city lights twinkling in the distance. I thought of Robert, how he would be proud. I thought of Michael, how he probably didn't even know his mother had completely rebuilt her life. I thought of Sophia, how she would be 14 now and I didn't know her at all. I let the tears run freely, not of sadness, of liberation. I had let go. I had finally let go of the fantasy that one day they would return, that one day they would apologize, that one day they would love me like I loved them. I didn't need that anymore. I had something better. I had myself. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. I woke up Sunday feeling renewed. I made coffee in my new kitchen. I went out to the terrace to soak up the sun. I checked my phone and saw messages from clients, from employees, from suppliers, people who needed me, people who valued my work, people who respected me. I didn't need Michael and Jessica to be complete. I was complete on my own, or so I thought. Because at 10 in the morning the doorbell rang, and when I opened that door, my past was standing there, carrying suitcases, demanding entry into my new life, and everything I had built, all the peace I had found, was about to crumble again. We stood like that for what seemed like an eternity, them in the hallway with their suitcases and expectations, me in the threshold of my door, holding the doorknob as if it were the only thing keeping me upright. Jessica was the first to break the silence. "Aren't you going to invite us in? We drove 2 hours to get here. At least you could offer us water." Her voice had that tone I remembered so well. Sweet on the surface, but with steel underneath. The tone she used when she wanted me to feel guilty for existing. I looked at Michael, really looked at him. He had aged. He had gray at his temples, wrinkles around his eyes. He looked tired, defeated. Nothing like the successful and confident man he used to be. "How did you know where I live?" I asked. My voice sounded firmer than I expected. Jessica smiled. "Social media is wonderful, isn't it? One of your employees posted a photo tagging your business. We researched a little and found the public record of your purchase. Congratulations on your success, Mom. It must have been lucrative." The way she said lucrative made me feel dirty, as if my success were something shameful, something suspicious. Michael finally spoke. "Mom, can we come in? We need to talk to you. It's important." There were so many possible answers. I could slam the door in their faces. I could tell them to go to hell. I could call building security. But a part of me, that foolish part that was still a mother, that still remembered the boy Michael had been, gave in. I stepped aside. They entered, dragging their suitcases. Jessica looked around with evaluating eyes. The penthouse was impeccable. Tasteful furniture, art on the walls, healthy plants by the windows, the spectacular view of the city. "Wow," Jessica said, dropping her purse onto my pearl gray sofa. "You've really done well. This must have cost a fortune." I didn't answer. I didn't owe her explanations about my finances. Michael sat down without being invited. He looked uncomfortable, ashamed maybe, but not enough to leave. "Mom," he began, "I know it's been many years. I know the last time we spoke things didn't end well." 12 years, I interrupted. "It's been 12 years, Michael. 12 years since you threatened me with a restraining order. 12 years since you called me a stalker. 12 years in which I haven't known anything about my granddaughter." He lowered his gaze. "About that," Jessica said, sitting next to him. We've reflected a lot. Maybe we were too hard on you. Maybe we misinterpreted some of your actions. We were under a lot of stress back then. Being first-time parents is hard. Maybe. Misinterpreted. Under stress. Not a real apology. Not an acknowledgement of what they had done to me. Just soft excuses wrapped in careful words. Why are you here? I asked directly. Jessica and Michael looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Finally, Michael sighed. I've had some financial problems, he said. My business went under 8 months ago. We lost our apartment. We've been living with Jessica's parents, but they are also going through difficulties. Jessica's mother got sick, and the medical bills have been overwhelming. We need a place to stay while we reorganize. There it was. The naked truth. They hadn't come because they missed me. They hadn't come because they wanted to reconcile. They had come because they needed me. Or, more specifically, they needed my money and my space. I see, I said. And Sophia? Where is she? She's with my sister Susan, Jessica said. We thought it was better to have this conversation first. You know, between adults? Right. Between adults. After 12 years of silence, after false accusations, after destroying my family reputation, now they wanted to talk between adults. I sat in the armchair opposite them. I folded my hands in my lap. I looked at them with the calm I had learned in these 12 years of solitude and reconstruction. So let me understand, I said slowly. You cut me completely out of your lives. You accused me of terrible things. You threatened me legally. You turned me into a family pariah. And now that you have economic problems, you show up here expecting me to rescue you? Michael had the decency to look ashamed. Mom, I know how it sounds. It sounds exactly like what it is, Michael. Opportunism. Jessica tensed. It's not opportunism, Eleanor. It's family. Families help each other in hard times. I couldn't help laughing. It was a bitter laugh, without humor. Family? Now I'm family? Where was that family when I sank into depression? Where was it when I lost 40 pounds because I couldn't eat from the pain? Where was it when I considered dark options because I felt completely alone in the world? The silence that followed was dense. Michael opened his mouth but closed it without saying anything. Jessica, however, didn't flinch. We all have our struggles, she said coldly. We've gone through hard times too. The difference is that I went through it alone, I said. You had each other. You had Sophia. You had the whole family you took from me. I had no one. Mom, please. Michael extended his hands in a pleading gesture. I know we made mistakes, but that was a long time ago. Can't we leave it in the past and move forward? Leave it in the past, I repeated. Michael, you are my son, my only son. I loved you from the moment I knew you existed. I raised you alone for years after your father died, and you chose to believe her instead of me. Over and over again, you chose to believe her. Michael rubbed his face with his hands. Jessica helped me see unhealthy patterns in our relationship. Mom, she helped me set boundaries. She manipulated you, I said, looking him straight in the eye. And you let her. Jessica stood up abruptly. I'm not going to stay here listening to unfounded accusations. I came with the best intentions, trying to rebuild bridges. And you attack me. She headed toward the door but stopped, waiting. It was a trick I knew well. The exit drama. The hope that someone would beg her to stay. Nobody did. Michael looked at her with panic. Jessica. Wait, she turned with perfectly calculated tears in her eyes. No, Michael. Your mother has made it very clear what she thinks of me. I'm not going to submit to this abuse. Abuse. That word again. The same one she had used 12 years ago to turn everyone against me. But this time it wouldn't work. This time I wasn't the desperate woman begging for crumbs of attention. Jessica, I said with a calm voice. You can leave if you want. The door is open. She looked at me surprised. Clearly she expected me to intervene, to soften my position, to apologize. Michael stood up. Mom, please. It doesn't have to be like this. How does it have to be then, Michael? Ask me. Do I have to pretend nothing happened? Do I have to open my house to people who destroyed me emotionally? Do I have to rescue them financially after they treated me like garbage? We're not asking you for money, Jessica said, returning to the sofa, her dramatic exit forgotten. Just a temporary place to stay. 2, 3 months max. Until Michael finds a job and we can rent something. A temporary place. 3 months. In my sanctuary. In the space I had bought with the sweat of years of hard work. In the home that represented my rebirth. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. And I wondered when exactly he had lost his backbone. When he had become this man who let his wife speak for him. Who appeared at his mother's door after 12 years with his hand out. "Michael," I said softly, "do you want to be here? Or did she tell you to come?" He hesitated. That hesitation gave me the answer. "Mom, we need help." That doesn't answer my question. "Do you want to reconcile with me? Or do you just need a free place to live?" The words hit him. I saw the impact in his eyes. For a moment I thought he would finally tell the truth, that he would admit this was Jessica's idea, that he was just following orders as he had done for 14 years. But Jessica intervened before he could speak. "This is ridiculous. We are your family, Eleanor. Whatever problems you have with the past, you can't turn your back on us now." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in all these years, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel the need to please her. I only felt a crystal clear clarity. "You turned your back on me first," I said. "And I learned to live without you. I learned to thrive without you. And now you come here assuming you can pick up where you left off as if nothing happened." Jessica stiffened. Her mask of vulnerability cracked for a second, and I saw what had always been underneath. Pure anger. "You are incredibly selfish," she said with a cutting voice. "Look at this place. You have all this space, all this money, and you don't want to share anything with your own family. What kind of mother are you?" "One who learned to take care of herself," I responded without flinching. "One who no longer lets herself be manipulated." "Manipulated," she repeated with disdain. "It's always about that with you, isn't it? You're always the victim. You can never accept responsibility for anything." I stood up slowly. My full height, my full space. I didn't shrink like I used to. "Jessica, for years I asked myself what I had done wrong. What defect did I have that made my own son reject me? I spent whole nights going over every conversation, every interaction, looking for my mistakes. And I found them. I found many. But none justified what you did to me." "Mom," Michael began. "I haven't finished," I said without taking my eyes off Jessica. "My biggest mistake was allowing you to control the narrative. It was believing that if I made myself smaller, more invisible, more compliant, eventually you would accept me. But it was never about what I did or didn't do. Right, Jessica? It was about power, about controlling Michael completely. And I was an obstacle." She laughed. "How dramatic you've become. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? That I'm the villain of your little story?" "You're not a villain," I said calmly. "You are a deeply insecure person who needed to isolate Michael from anyone who could influence him. You started with me because I was the closest, the most threatening to your control." "This is ridiculous," she said, turning toward Michael. "Are you going to allow her to talk to me like that?" Michael was pale. He looked between the two of us like a child trapped between two fighting adults. He didn't know what to say. Probably hadn't known what to say for years. I answered for him. "Michael isn't going to say anything, Jessica, because this is how your dynamic works. You talk, you decide, you control. And he has learned it's easier to agree with you than to confront you." Michael finally found his voice. "That's not true, Mom. Jessica and I are partners. We make decisions together." "Seriously?" I asked. "Coming here was your decision? Or did she see my success on social media and decide it was time to reconnect?" "It was an idea from both of us," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I nodded slowly. "Michael, do you know how many times I tried to contact you in these 12 years? The first 6 months I tried constantly. Calls, messages, emails, nothing. Then I tried every birthday of yours, every Christmas, every Mother's Day that I spent, destroyed and alone. You never answered. Not once." "Mom, You had 12 years to answer," I interrupted. 12 years to ask yourself if maybe you had been too hard. 12 years where you could have verified if all those things Jessica told you about me were true. But you didn't, because it was more comfortable to believe her, easier to make me the villain than to question your wife." Silence filled the penthouse. Outside, the city kept moving. Cars, people, life. But inside these walls, time had stopped. So what? Jessica asked with a cold voice. Are you going to kick us out? Are you going to let your son and granddaughter end up on the street? Sophia isn't here, I pointed out. And curiously, you never mentioned bringing her until you needed to use her as an emotional weapon. Jessica clenched her jaw. Of course she comes with us. She's our daughter. Does she know you're here? I asked. Does she know you're trying to move in with me? Or did you plan to present this to her as a done deal? Michael rubbed his temples. Mom, you're complicating this unnecessarily. We just need temporary help. Why does it have to be so difficult? Because it's not just about a place to live, Michael. It's about the fact that you show up after 12 years expecting me to act as if nothing happened. As if you hadn't destroyed me. As if you had a right to my space, my peace, my life. We have nowhere else to go, he said, and for the first time I heard something real in his voice. Desperation. Jessica's parents can't help us anymore. My friends are in similar situations. You are our last option. Last option. Those words hurt more than I expected. I wasn't the family they missed. I was the last resort when everything else had failed. Tell me about Sophia, I said, changing the subject. What is she like? The question took Michael off guard. She is wonderful. Smart. Talented. She studies piano. She does very well in school. I smiled sadly. She's 14 years old and I know nothing about her. I don't know if she looks like me or you. I don't know what she likes to eat. I don't know what music she listens to. I don't know what makes her laugh. I am a complete stranger to my own granddaughter. And that was your decision, not mine. Mom, Michael began, but I stopped him. I'm going to be very clear, I said firmly. I am not going to allow you to move in here. This is my space, my sanctuary. I built it from scratch, after you tore me apart. I'm not going to contaminate it with your presence. Jessica stood up furious. Did you hear that, Michael? Your mother just called us contamination? Don't twist my words, I said firmly. I said I'm not going to contaminate my space with your presence. There is a difference. However, I continued looking at Michael. I'm not going to leave you on the street. I'm going to offer you something different. Both looked at me, Michael with hope, Jessica with mistrust. I will pay 3 months of rent for you in a modest apartment, I said. $1,200 a month. That gives you time for Michael to find a job and stabilize. I will also give you $2,000 for initial expenses. Food, utilities, whatever you need. Michael breathed relieved. Mom, thank you. I didn't know. I haven't finished, I said. This comes with conditions. Jessica crossed her arms. Of course it does. Condition 1. This is a loan, not a gift. When Michael finds a job, you will pay $1,000 monthly until you settle the $5,600. No interest, just the exact amount. Condition 2. During these 3 months, I want to see Sophia, once a week, 1 hour, in a neutral place, a coffee shop, a park, wherever she feels comfortable. Jessica opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand. Condition 3. If Sophia doesn't want to see me, I will respect her decision. I'm not going to force a relationship, but it has to be her decision, not yours. And finally, condition 4. You will seek family therapy, all 3 of you, you two and Sophia, non-negotiable. That is absurd, Jessica said. We don't need therapy. Then you don't need my help, I responded. Those are my conditions. Take it or leave it. Michael looked at Jessica. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes. I wasn't sure what it was. Frustration? Exhaustion? Maybe the beginning of awareness? Jessica, we have to accept, he said quietly. We have no options. She clenched her fists. It's always about control with you, Eleanor. Always setting conditions. Always manipulating. No, Jessica. Control is what you exercised for 12 years. These are boundaries. Healthy boundaries. You remember that concept, right? It was you who taught it to Michael. She glared at me but knew she had won this round. They needed my help too much to refuse. Okay, Michael said finally. We accept your conditions. All of them. Perfect, I said. Tomorrow I will transfer the money for the apartment. You can look for something in your price range and send me the details. The additional $2,000 I will give you once you sign a document confirming it is a loan. A legal document? Jessica asked indignantly. Trust but verify, I said. Another phrase I'm sure you know. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. It's time for you to go. Michael stood up slowly. Thanks, Mom, he said. I didn't expect this. I know, I responded. You didn't expect anything good from me. That says a lot about how you see me, or how you were taught to see me. They left, dragging their suitcases toward the hallway. At the door, Michael turned. Is there any chance this will work? He asked. That we can be a family again? I looked at my son, the man he had become, so different from the boy I had raised. I don't know, Michael, I said honestly. But if it is, it will be under very different terms than before. I am no longer the woman I was. I no longer need your approval to feel I have worth, and I am no longer going to allow you to treat me like a last resort. He nodded slowly. I think I understand. I hope so, I said, because this is the only chance you're going to get. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it. My whole body was shaking. I had been strong. I had set boundaries. I had maintained my dignity. But it hurt. God, how it hurt. That night I couldn't sleep. I stayed on the terrace watching the city lights until the sky began to lighten. I had done the right thing. I knew it in my mind, but my heart was still bleeding. I had dreamed of Michael's return for years. In those fantasies, he arrived repentant, acknowledging all the damage he had caused me. We hugged, we cried together. We rebuilt what had been broken. Reality had been completely different. He had come out of necessity, not love, and I had had to protect myself instead of hugging him. The next day, I kept my promise. I transferred the money for the apartment. Michael sent me the address of a modest place 40 minutes from my penthouse. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, small kitchen, rent of $1,200 a month. I gave them the additional $2,000 after they signed the loan document before a notary. Jessica signed with contained rage. Michael signed with shame in his eyes. 3 days later, I received a message from Michael. Sophia wants to meet you. This Saturday at 3, at the cafe on Maple Street. My heart stopped. After 12 years, I would finally see my granddaughter. The baby I had held for only minutes. The girl whose growth I had seen only in stolen photos from social media before Jessica blocked their accounts. I answered with trembling hands. I'll be there. On Saturday, I arrived 30 minutes early. I chose a table near the window, but not too visible. I ordered a coffee I couldn't drink. My hands were shaking too much. At 3 o'clock sharp, the door opened. And there she was. Sophia was beautiful, tall for her 14 years, with Jessica's dark hair, but Michael's eyes, Robert's eyes. She looked nervous, uncomfortable. Michael came behind her. Jessica, notably, was not there. I stood up slowly. Hi, Sophia, I said with a soft voice. I'm your grandma Eleanor. She looked at me with curiosity mixed with caution. Hi, she replied. Her voice was soft, polite. The voice of someone who didn't know what to expect. Michael stayed near the door. Just an hour, Mom, he said. As we agreed, I nodded. He left the cafe, but I saw him through the window sitting on a bench outside, watching, protecting his daughter from me. From his own mother. Sophia sat across from me. She kept her purse in her lap like a shield. Do you want to order something? I asked. A hot chocolate? Anything? She ordered a caramel frappuccino and a cookie. I didn't touch my coffee. I didn't know where to start. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head. But now that she was here, all the words had evaporated. Dad says we didn't see you because you and Mom didn't get along, Sophia said suddenly. He says it was complicated. I looked at that girl, my granddaughter, and had to make a decision. I could tell her the truth. I could tell her all of Jessica's lies, all the manipulations, all the pain. I could make her hate her mother. Or I could protect her. I could give her space to form her own opinions over time. It's true that your mom and I had different visions on many things, I said carefully. And sometimes adults handle disagreements in ways that hurt everyone, including the children caught in the middle. She nodded slowly. Mom says you were very controlling, that you wanted to decide how they raised me. I could feel the trap. Jessica had prepared Sophia with her version of events. Anything I said in my defense would sound like excuses. What do you think? I asked. Do I seem controlling right now? Sophia looked surprised by the question. I don't know, she said. I barely know you. Exactly, I said softly. And that is the biggest tragedy of all this. You should know me. I should have been in your life since you were born. I should know what your favorite color is, what subject you like in school, what you dream of being when you grow up. But I don't know any of that. And you don't know anything about me, except what others have told you. She bit her lip. It's mint green, she said quietly. What? My favorite color. It's mint green. And I like literature. I want to be a writer someday. I smiled. I felt tears pricking my eyes, but I held them back. Your grandpa Robert loved to read. He had a whole library of books at home. He always said, stories are the way we understand the world. My grandpa? She asked. Dad never talks much about him. I spent the next hour telling her about Robert, about how I fell in love with him in a library when we both reached for the same book, about how he wrote me terrible poems that made me laugh, about how he was the best father Michael could have had. I told her stories of Michael when he was a boy, how he was terrified of storms and would crawl into our bed, how he collected rocks from the garden convinced they were treasures, how he helped me cook standing on a stool next to the stove. Sophia listened, fascinated. These were stories no one had told her, parts of her family history that had been denied to her. I never saw photos of when Dad was a kid, she said. Mom says they got lost in a move. I have complete albums, I said. If you ever want to see them. They are stored in boxes at my house. Her eyes lit up. Really? Could I see them sometime? Whenever you want, I said. They are yours too. It's your story, your family. The hour passed too quickly. When Michael tapped on the window, pointing at his watch, I felt as if we had barely begun. Sophia stood up slowly. This was nice, she said, different from what I expected. What did you expect? I asked. She shrugged. I don't know. Someone else. Bitter, I guess. Someone angry. I am angry, I said honestly. But not with you. Never with you. None of this was your fault. She nodded. Can I come again? Next week? My heart expanded. Yes, I said. I would love that. Sophia left the cafe. I saw her meet Michael outside. They spoke briefly. He looked at me through the window. I couldn't read his expression. That night I received a message from an unknown number. It was Jessica. I know what you're doing. You're trying to turn Sophia against me. It won't work. She is my daughter. I answered simply, I am not turning anyone against anyone. I am just getting to know my granddaughter. Something I should have been able to do 14 years ago. She replied immediately. You were always a professional victim, always blaming others. Michael finally sees you for who you really are. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. Jessica was scared. And scared people attack. The following weeks established a pattern. I saw Sophia every Saturday, 1 hour, always at the same cafe. Little by little, she started to open up. She told me about school, about her friends, about how she liked a boy in her math class but was too shy to talk to him. She also told me about the tension at home, about how her parents fought constantly about money, about how her mother was always in a bad mood, about how her father looked tired all the time. One Saturday, Sophia arrived with red eyes from crying. What happened? I asked immediately. Mom and I had a big fight, she said. She told me I spent too much time with you, that you were filling my head with lies about her. My stomach sank. And what did you tell her? That you never speak ill of her, that you only tell me stories about Grandpa and about Dad when he was a kid, that it makes me feel connected to my family in a way I had never felt before. She got madder, said I was being manipulated and didn't realize it. I took Sophia's hands across the table. Listen to me well, I said. You love your mom. That is normal and right. She is your mother, and she has raised you. Nothing I say or do should change that. I'm not here to replace her or compete with her. I just want to know you, that's all. But she says you are bad, Sophia whispered. That you ruined her life, that you always tried to control her and control Dad. People sometimes remember things in different ways, I said carefully. Your mom believes her version. I believe mine. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. What matters is how I treat you. here and now. Have I ever made you feel bad? Have I pressured you? Have I asked you to choose between your mom and me? Sophia shook her head. Never. Then judge me by my actions, not by what others say about me. She squeezed my hands. I want to keep seeing you, even if Mom doesn't want to. That scared me. I don't want to cause problems in your home. Sophia, you aren't causing anything, she said firmly. This is their problem, not mine, and not yours. In that moment, I saw something in my granddaughter that filled me with pride and pain simultaneously. She had a backbone her father had lost years ago. She had clarity that took decades for me to develop. At 14, Sophia was stronger than both of them. That night, Jessica called me. She didn't text. She called. I answered. What did you say to my daughter? She screamed without saying hello. I told her stories about her grandfather. I responded calmly. Lies. You are manipulating her against me, she told me. Said she wants to keep seeing you no matter what I say. That is what she decided. Jessica, I never asked her that. You always do it, she hissed. You always play the victim. The saint. The one who never does anything wrong. But I see you. I know exactly who you are. Who am I, Jessica? I asked. Tell me, who do you think I am? You are a bitter woman who can't let go of her son, who can't accept that he chose a life with me, who uses her money now to buy my daughter's affection. I laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh. It was genuine. Jessica, I have money because I worked 12 years building a business from scratch. After you cut me out of your lives, after you left me alone and broken, I am not using my money to buy anything. I offered you help with reasonable conditions. You accepted them. You should be grateful. Grateful? She screamed. You should feel blessed that we let you back into our lives after everything you did. And there it was. The naked truth. Jessica really believed her own narrative, really thought they were doing me a favor by allowing me to help them, that I should be grateful for the crumbs. I am not going to continue this conversation, I said. If you want to talk like an adult, we can do it, but I am not going to tolerate screaming or accusations. This isn't over, she threatened. I'm not going to let you take my daughter from me. Nobody is taking anyone from anyone, I said. But if you keep forcing Sophia to choose, eventually she will, and she might not choose what you expect. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My peace was being attacked constantly. But this time I wasn't alone. This time I had something to defend. I had boundaries. I had dignity, and I had Sophia beginning to know her truth. 2 weeks later, everything exploded. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my commercial kitchen supervising a large order when I received a call from Michael. Mom, I need you to come to the apartment. Now. It's important. His voice sounded strange, tense, but also different. What happened? I asked. Is Sophia okay? She's fine. Just come, please. I drove the 40 minutes with my heart racing. When I arrived at the apartment, Michael was waiting for me at the door. He looked gaunt. He had lost weight. He had deep, dark circles. Come in, he said. Jessica isn't here. That surprised me. Where is she? She went to her sister Susan's house 3 days ago. I entered the apartment. It was messy. Unfolded clothes on the sofa, dirty dishes in the sink, empty pizza boxes stacked by the trash. Michael sat on the sofa and covered his face with his hands. I sat opposite him in silence, waiting. Finally, he spoke. I found something, he said. On her phone. Jessica left her old phone when she bought a new one last month. I kept it thinking of selling it. But a few days ago, Sophia needed to find some old photos, and we turned it on. My stomach tightened. What did you find, Michael? Messages, he said, looking up. His eyes were red. Years of messages with her sister Susan, with her mother, talking about you, about how they planned to keep you away, about how they invented things you supposedly said or did. There was a long silence. I didn't know what to say. A part of me wanted to scream, I told you so. Another part only felt deep exhaustion. There was a message, Michael continued with a broken voice, from 13 years ago, right after Sophia was born. Jessica wrote to her mother. I almost have her completely out. Another year and Michael won't even miss her. I just need to find the perfect moment for the final cut. I closed my eyes. There it was. The confirmation of what I had always known, but never could prove. Sophia's birthday, Michael said. When she was 2. When Jessica accused you of trying to poison her with the cake, there were messages from days before planning it. She said she needed something dramatic, something that would make me cut you off completely without doubts. I took a deep breath. How do you feel? I asked him. Destroyed, he said. I've been living a lie for 14 years. I let her destroy you. I let her accuse you of terrible things. And the whole time you were innocent. Not completely innocent, I said. I made mistakes. But you didn't deserve what they did to me, he interrupted. And Sophia grew up without knowing you because of her mother's lies. Does she know? I asked. About the messages? Michael nodded. She was there when we found them. She read them all. She cried for hours. Now she's furious with Jessica. Doesn't even want to talk to her. That's why Jessica left. She couldn't handle Sophia confronting her. I felt a mixture of emotions. Relief for the truth. Pain for Sophia having to process this. Michael, I said slowly, this isn't about me winning and Jessica losing. It's about a whole family that was damaged by manipulation and lies. Sophia lost 12 years with her grandmother. You lost the relationship with your mother. I lost my son and my granddaughter. We all lost. I know, he whispered. And I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it, I said. You can only start from where we are now and build something new, something based on honesty. Can you forgive me? He asked. His eyes were pleading. I don't know, Michael, I said honestly. I need time. I need to see actions, not just words. I need to know that finally you are willing to think for yourself. I understand, he said. I'll do whatever is necessary. Therapy, whatever you ask. Just don't abandon me again. You abandoned me, I reminded him gently. You're right. I did. And I'm going to have to live with that the rest of my life. At that moment, the door to one of the bedrooms opened. Sophia came out. Her eyes were puffy from crying, but there was determination on her face. Grandma, she said. Can I stay with you for a while? Michael tensed. Sophia, you can't just— Yes, I can, she interrupted. I'm 14. I have a voice. And I don't want to be near Mom right now. I need space to process all this. I looked at my granddaughter, at this strong, clear young woman who somehow had emerged from all this chaos. Is your dad okay with it? I asked. Michael hesitated. I think you need to talk, that you need therapy together to heal this. It's not permanent, Sophia said. It's temporary, 1 or 2 months. The time I need to understand how I feel, and I want to get to know my grandmother, really know her, without supervision, without Mom controlling every conversation. Michael looked at me. What do you say, Mom? I thought about it carefully. Sophia can stay with me, I said finally, but with conditions. She goes to therapy. You go to therapy. Eventually, everyone goes to family therapy, including Jessica, if she is willing, and Sophia maintains contact with both parents. I'm not going to be part of alienating her from her mother. Sophia nodded vigorously. I agree. Michael breathed deeply. Okay, but promise me, Sophia, that you're going to give your mom a chance eventually. I can't promise that now, Sophia said, but I promise to try to keep an open mind. That night, Sophia moved into the penthouse. We turned my office into her temporary room. We bought new sheets, pillows, decorations she chose. Mint green, of course. The first days were strange. 2 women learning to live together, learning routines and boundaries, but also discovering connections. Sophia loved to cook. We spent afternoons in the kitchen, preparing elaborate dinners. She told me her stories, the ones she wrote in secret. I told her about Robert, about Michael when he was a boy, about my business. One night, 2 weeks after she moved in, we were sitting on the terrace looking at the stars. Grandma, Sophia asked, how did you not become bitter? After everything you went through, how are you still kind? I looked at my granddaughter. I wasn't always kind, I said. There were years where I was full of rage, of pain. But eventually I realized that those feelings only hurt me. They didn't change what had happened. They only made me miserable. So I chose. So, you simply let it go? It wasn't simple, I said. It was a process. Therapy, time, and the conscious decision to build a life worth living. A life where I wasn't defined by what others had done to me, but by what I chose to do. I want to be like that, Sophia said. Strong like you. You already are strong, I said. Stronger than I was at your age. You have something that takes many of us decades to develop. Clarity about who you are and what you deserve. While we talked, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jessica. We need to talk. About Sophia. About everything. I showed the message to Sophia. What do you think? Eventually I have to face her, she said. But not yet. I replied to the message. Sophia needs more time. When she is ready, I will let you know. In the meantime, I suggest you seek therapy. Jessica didn't reply. 3 weeks passed. Then I received a different message. I found a therapist. I've gone twice. It's harder than I thought. I replied, growth always is. Keep trying. Little by little, the pieces started to fit. Michael found a job. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. He started paying the loan religiously. $1,000 every month. He visited Sophia twice a week. At first, the visits were tense. But gradually, father and daughter began to rebuild something real. Jessica eventually asked to see Sophia. After 2 months, Sophia accepted. They met at the same cafe where Sophia and I had met. I waited outside. When they came out, both had red eyes. It was hard, Sophia said. But necessary. Mom is finally acknowledging things. It's going to take time, but we're trying. 6 months later, we had our first family therapy session. The 4 of us, Michael, Jessica, Sophia, and I. It was brutal, painful. Jessica had to face years of manipulation. Michael had to acknowledge his complicity. I had to let go of part of my victimization. Sophia had to process the betrayal, but it was also healing. Because finally, we were talking for real. Without masks, just 4 broken people trying to find a way to move forward. I don't know if someday we will be a normal family. Probably not. There is too much history. But we are building something new. Something based on truth. Sophia decided to stay with me permanently. Jessica, after much therapeutic work, accepted the decision. She sees Sophia regularly. Their relationship is healing slowly. Michael and I are learning to know each other as adults. As 2 people who choose to connect, not because they have to, but because they want to. My business continues to thrive. I now have 20 employees, 2 locations of my own, contracts with 15 hotels. But true success isn't the money. It's waking up every morning with Sophia making breakfast in the kitchen. It's hearing her laughter. It's watching her grow into this extraordinary young woman. It's knowing that finally, after years of darkness, there is light. Last night, Sophia and I were cooking together. I was teaching her to make the chocolate cake Robert loved, the same one I had brought to her birthday 12 years ago. The one no one tasted. Grandma, she said while we beat the batter. Do you think everything happens for a reason? I looked at my granddaughter, at this blessing that had emerged from so much loss. I think we can find reasons in the things that happen, I said. We can choose to grow or become bitter. We can choose to close our hearts or open them wider. We can choose to be defined by our pain or by our resilience. And you? What did you choose? I chose to survive, I said. I chose to rebuild myself. I chose to believe I deserved a beautiful life, even if others didn't see my worth. And in the end, that choice brought me back to you. Sophia hugged me. That hug was worth every tear, every lonely night. It was worth the 12 lost years because they brought me to this moment. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, that family isn't just blood, but choice, that self-love isn't selfishness, it's survival, and that sometimes the most beautiful things grow in the soil where we buried our deepest pain. Today I am 65 years old. I have a thriving business, a beautiful penthouse, a granddaughter who fills me with pride, a son who is learning to be a man again, and most importantly, I have peace. I have dignity. I have the certainty that no matter what comes, I'm going to be okay. Because finally I found myself, and that woman is enough.